What's going on, everybody? It is Triple Crown at 24 back with a new card show recap video. This is the Hilliard card show located at the Franklin County Fairgrounds, just outside of Columbus, Ohio. It's pretty much a stone's throw from Columbus. And this was for Saturday, June 25th, 2022, the first day of what is a 2-day show, but I've never really needed to spend 2 days there if I'm going to buy. Setting up, it is definitely one of those shows that it is more beneficial for me to set up than it is to walk around and buy, because the opportunities to buy can be a bit limited at times. You really have to dig, and that was most certainly the case at this show today. Give you the overall impressions. I was excited to go back to this show because it is one of the few that remains on my list of ones that I am revisiting from pre-pandemic times. So when I was first kind of starting out as a dealer, going to these shows and approaching these shows with a different mindset as when I was doing this, just as a hobbyist collecting. And just to see how the hobby has evolved since then and see how these shows have changed. This show was pretty much exactly as I remembered it, which is actually pretty impressive considering that, there has been so many opportunities for it to change, but the more things change, the more they say the same. This is what they say. Anyways, this show was jam-packed, elbow to elbow for the first 2 to 2.5 hours of it, which is pretty typical on Saturday. Usually around 11, 11:30, 12, it starts to fizzle out a little bit and the crowd starts to leave. I don't know why exactly that is, why people, I can't imagine spending less than 2 hours in a card show unless it was just really, really bad or extremely small. I need that time to go around the room 2, 3, 4, 5 times and make sure I didn't miss anything that I was interested in, kind of strategize. But anyways, it was pretty jam packed. And this show is definitely vintage heavy. There is a lot of dealers here who have been setting up here for years and years, way before I even came to the show for the first time, and probably still for many more years to come. These same guys will be there, and through that, I've seen some of these guys at different shows before too, and a lot of them are great guys. I don't always make deals with them just because they don't always have what I'm looking for, but they're great people to work with, especially if you're a vintage set builder. Then you would probably really love this show because there's a lot of raw vintage dealers. Not so much graded vintage. There is some of that there, but a lot of it is raw. The problem that I find with a lot of it is that it is priced to the point where the condition is basically they're putting a premium on the condition, which makes sense. It is their card, but I wouldn't buy raw vintage like that when it's priced that way. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but that's a different discussion for a different day. But that was the overall impressions of the show. Let's go into the pickups. It took me forever to make a deal at this show. I only came away with 5 cards actually, and I'll get more into the show floor review and what was hot, what was not, and kind of explain that a bit more. But I was just walking around and I was not seeing the prices that worked for me. I was asking about certain cards and they were not in line with what I was hoping to hear when I was asking about them or when I was seeing the stickers on some of them. So, I mean, there was some nice stuff. There was some rare stuff in there too, but just I couldn't find anything that made sense for me. I did eventually make a buy, and in hindsight, I wasn't too happy with this buy. It was kind of one of those that it was more of an impulse. I never recommend that at a show. Be patient. Even if you don't buy anything, that's okay. That's money that you can save for another day. And that was the case with this one. This card was less than a blaster, so it's not like I spent an exorbitant amount of money on this, but it is a 1997 Bowman's Best Atomic of Barry Larkin. It is hulking quite a bit. I didn't really see that too well when I was at the show. The lighting isn't the best at this show. Compared to some of the other ones I've been at. Most card shows aren't necessarily known for their lighting and seeing cards like this, but had I seen that this one was hulking as much as it was, I probably would have walked away. It is what it is, though. I always like to look for reds outside of the Cincinnati area and even Bengals to some extent, just because they do so incredibly well when I set up at local shows here. So kind of bring them back home, so to speak, to Reds country. and people love them. So I grabbed this. I thought it looked fantastic. They just don't make the atomic refractors. Like, they don't even make atomic refractors to begin with. Well, I guess they do, but they're cracked ice. They're not like this pulsar, I guess they call it, or prism with an S technology. But even now, they just don't pop like they used to. So that little aside, I'm going to move into the rest of the pickups. This next one was what I like to call a momentum builder. And what I mean by that is that there are times where I'll walk around the show and I'll get discouraged by the fact that, prices I think are just way too high, or, the dealers aren't willing to work with you, or whatever the case may be. Or maybe there's just nothing that's jumping out to me as stuff that I like. And it was a little bit of a mix. Not so much of dealers not willing to work with you. There was a lot of wheeling and dealing and people willing to negotiate on prices, but it wasn't working for me. So I saw this card. It was one of those that was probably on my third or fourth time around the show. It caught my eye and I saw the sticker price and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to haggle on this. I'm just going to grab it because I thought it was really cool. And one of my all-time favorite parallels, one that you don't necessarily see all the time if you're looking for a specific card from the set. It is the 2011 Hope Diamond Anniversary of Andrew McCutcheon. Shout out to Collecting Kutch. Fantastic follow on the Instagram and the Twitter. Andrew McCutcheon Super Collector. These are numbered out of 60, so they are same odds to pull, I believe, as the black borders from 2011 tops. I love the Diamond Anniversaries, the regular ones that look like the silver. I'm not so big on the more fall colory ones. I forget what they're called, but I don't like those ones as much. I did see quite a bit of the regular diamonds there, but this Hope Diamond, whenever I see these, regardless, easy for me to say, regardless of the player, I always strongly consider picking it up or pick it up. So this one right here for a pretty solid player in McCutcheon for the price that it was at, I just grabbed it because you don't see these every day. So I was very happy with that one. And after that one, my spirits were lifted up a bit and it allowed me to make the deal on the next card that came, which I will show last because it's my favorite card I picked up. And then also led into deals for these two to end the show. These two kind of used up the rest of my budget for the day. So I decided to call it quits. But this is a 2020 Heritage Whiteboarder Ronald Acuna Jr. With Heritage, they're based off of past top sets. They go in chronological order as time has gone on. So based off the 71 design, these are a little bit different, I would say, from other years just because of the 71 design being the black borders. You'll see white parallels in place of the black borders or black refractors that you'll typically see like in this year's Heritage. So these cards don't have any numbering on them, but they have a stated print run of 50. So they're difficult to find, especially as time goes on. I found that in a lot of cases, they don't necessarily command the premium as the refractors. That makes sense. In today's world, it seems like chrome is king, or prism, or whatever you want to call your chromium-based cards. And people like those more than your more traditional, I guess you could call them paper cards. That's how some people refer to them as. But I saw this one. It didn't have a price on it, so I was kind of scared to ask. And initially, the dealer asked for $40, and I thought he said 140, which it was going to be a no at 140. I might have tried to negotiate down, but when he said 40, I was much happier. I had asked for clarification what he was asking for it, and we made a deal on this one, so I was very happy to grab this. Just card that you don't see every day. I like that photo a lot of Acuna too. It's got the Disney complex there in the background, it looks like, from spring training. This was the last card I picked up of the day, not the last one I'll show. And I've been on a kick with this guy lately. I actually just got this in a trade. 2013 Topps Chrome Manny Machado rookie auto, which this is the sepia number to 75, and I got this for less than half the price of a hobby box. You told me how that makes sense, but that's not the card I picked up. I picked up this one, which is also probably for what I paid for it, half the price of a hobby box of this 2013 Triple Threads. And technically this is an RPA. since this is Machado's rookie year. It doesn't have the Frank's Red Hot logo on it, but it is from 2013. So this is the Sapphire parallel, not that kind of sapphire, but before the dates of Chrome Sapphire. 3 of 3 on this one here. And the dealer had a very reasonable sticker price on it. I was kind of low on cash, so I told him, this is pretty much all the cash I have left. Will you take this for this card? Because I tried to throw in something trade-wise just to kind of make up the difference, and we couldn't come to terms on anything. So he took the deal on this one, so I was happy with it. Very cool to pick up that Machado. This one was in a really scuffed up mag, actually, as well, just as a little side note. And it almost looked like the signature was smeared. And I walked past it the first time because I thought it did look smeared. But then I kind of looked at it again and I tilted it in the light. And I was able to see that it wasn't, it was just the magnetic that was making it appear that way. So that was what convinced me to target that card. And then I need to peel the price sticker off of the back of this one. 1 second. But this card here was one of those that I was walking around the show floor. I saw it. I kind of was thinking in my head, all right, how much cash do I have left? What do I want to spend on this card? And what number can the dealer tell me to make me go after this one? And when he told me the number on this card, I almost bought it instantly. I worked the price down just a tad bit on it. Because why not? But it was one of those that there was no way I was walking away from this card after he said the price on it. And this is a dealer that's been there for a very long time. He's been around for a long time. Really polite, really great gentleman to work with. Always a pleasure to stop by his table. He's got beautiful looking vintage cards. And this might be one of the nicest examples of this card I have ever seen. For the grade, it is a 1965 Topps Mickey Mantle PSA 3. Now, at first you might think that the centering is a little off top to bottom, and it is a little bit, but not as much as you may think. So what's kind of taking away from this card a little bit is that you can see there's a bit of a shadow that is emanating from the top part of the inner holder that keeps the card in place with PSA. You can really see it right there. So it's a bit deceptive in showing the true borders of the cards. You can see it looks like it almost dips down a bit here from where the part where this little bar isn't at. And when you see it in person and you hold it at the right angle where that shadow is kind of taken away, I can't really get it on camera because then it makes this part look a little bit bigger. But this is so incredibly well centered, especially for a 65 Topps, which is a set that they are typically not centered. And when you find low grade examples, the centering might be pretty good on them, but I very rarely see them where they are this good. And when I saw this one, it was just one of those that even from an arm's length away inside the showcase, I could just tell that it was a beautiful example. I didn't even have to bring it up close. Give you a look at the back here, and even the back is pretty damn well centered, I gotta say. Part of my language, but it's a little bit of like a stain on that corner there. I didn't see that before, but I mean, it's a beautiful example of this card, and I cannot say enough good things about this. And again, when he told me the price, I'm like, man, I cannot walk away from this card right now. This is way too beautiful of a 65 Topps Mantle. So this is one of those that will it be available? Yes, it will be available, but it's not one that I will be letting go on the cheap. I will definitely want a premium for this one. It's one that I don't mind hanging on to for a while, but man, oh man, this has to be one of the nicest Mantle playing day cards that I have owned, period, regardless of what year it was from. It's not like I've owned, dozens upon dozens. I've owned, several, a handful, we'll say, but God, such a beautiful card. So I was extremely happy with that. That one made the whole show for me. And then the Acuna and the Machado after that were also very much, they kind of solidified things, but the Mantle right there, if I just walked out with that card alone, I would have been thrilled. So let's talk about the show floor really quickly. I say really quickly, but you know me, it probably won't be. it is a very vintage heavy show. I think I kind of alluded to that at the beginning. The problem for me is that a lot of it is raw vintage. And am I scared of raw vintage? In some cases, I am a little bit scared on just certain cards, especially when they look really, really nice. But some of these cards are ones that were probably there the last time that I was at this show. And they are priced in a way where if you were to get these sent into a professional authenticator and get them graded, this would be the price based on a grade that you would be, I guess, lucky to receive. And then on top of that, it would be commanding a premium for the price of said grade, if that makes sense. I probably didn't explain that too well, but just with vintage cards, it is so difficult a lot of times that you can miss a wrinkle or a pinhole or something like that. And, you know, if it's a nice example of the card, you might say, oh, well, who cares? Well, you could get a card that is of similar quality for significantly less if those issues are, you know, kind of made apparent to you. There are some people who just love raw vintage and that's what they go for, and more power to them. There's nothing wrong with that, of course. It's just, it's not really for me unless it's a lower grade example where I'm not paying a premium for, say, a playing days mantle that the dealer thinks is in near mint condition because it just takes one little wrinkle that I'm not paying attention to or can't see in the show floor lighting that all of a sudden makes it a, you know, a not so great price for that card. So on a lot of those, I do walk away from it. There's a lot of cards that are great for set builders and all that, but a lot of those prices still kind of reflected April 2021, or they were priced, you know, long ago and they were pretty high for the time. And even though things have generally gone up since the last time I was at this show, it still wasn't something that would really interest me. I was looking for the last couple of cards I needed for my Tigers team set. I didn't have any luck finding any of those. So, you know, that was what it was. I figured that this was one of the best shows to try to go for those at besides the National. Didn't work out that way. It is what it is. So, other than that, for the newer cards, there was a lot of Ohio State stuff, which makes sense, of course. Columbus, that's Buckeye country, and you will see so many cards of OSU alum in value boxes. There are Buckeye boxes where it just takes players who are OSU alumni and they put them out. And all of the Ohio State stuff, you should most certainly expect to pay a heavy premium on it. There was a lot of Cleveland stuff, a lot of Cincinnati stuff. It typically leans a bit more Cleveland from what I remember. This show was a little bit more Cincinnati heavy, which was a little bit unusual, but it makes sense just because Columbus is about halfway between the two. So you usually will get a healthy mix of the two. There was also a decent amount of hockey at this show too, both vintage hockey and more modern hockey, which was cool to see. I don't go to too many shows where hockey is very prevalent. Even when I go to more, I guess, traditional hockey cities like a Detroit or a Chicago, I don't even see that much hockey there. In Columbus, yes, there is an NHL team here, the Blue Jackets, but I wouldn't consider Columbus a huge hockey town. There is certainly a good number of passionate hockey fans. No disrespect to my Blue Jacket fans out there, but it's not like it's rampant out in that neck of the woods. So I just wanted to put that out there. Let's talk about what people were actually buying. This show does have a fair number of value boxes and some of the best value box dealers, if you want to call them that's set up at this show. And they must have been really good because the foot traffic at these value boxes was absolutely insane. If you've ever been to the Singles Club booth at the National, it's one of my favorite booths, perhaps the best dollar boxes out there. It looked like it was Saturday afternoon at Singles Club at the National at these various value boxes, and it was almost impossible to get in there. I dug through a couple of them briefly, but it was just the crowds were too much. I really couldn't get to many of them, and just kind of had to walk away from maybe some opportunities there. But I got to go through some. I found some really cool cards. Nothing that I was particularly looking for myself, but I got to say, hats off to the dealers because they put together some really solid value boxes, some of the best ones that I have seen in quite some time. So, again, tip of the cap to those dealers. They always do a great job with them, anyways. So, but the value boxes were definitely extremely hot at those shows. Other than that, though, there weren't too many big money cards that were changing hands from what I was seeing. I didn't see any multi-$100 deals going down. I didn't see any of those really flashy $1,000 plus deals going down. Were they happening? Yeah, maybe. I just wasn't paying attention to them. But a lot of those big cards, as I kept walking around, were remaining in the showcases. So those kind of things were not moving as much. So I guess that wasn't as hot. Quarterbacks were extremely hot as well. Non-quarterbacks were not that hot. And by non-quarterbacks, I also mean in all the different sports as well. So basketball was not hot. Baseball really wasn't all that hot. There's some people interested, but not all that much. There was a bit of soccer there as well, and that seemed to be extremely popular too. So I would say that soccer was also hot, to kind of give you an idea. So much different than probably what you're used to hearing from me and from a lot of the show recaps that I listen to or watch on YouTube. Was a lot different than that too, which is nice. You know, it gets kind of boring after a while when everything is the same constantly. So this one was a bit different. It definitely offered a lot of different things. So if any of what I just said interests you, I would probably expect the same to happen at the next show, which will be September 10th and 11th, kind of the same time frames at the same location. So if you can make it out to Columbus, would recommend it. It is a fun show to go to. If any of what I've said has appealed to you, because there's definitely a lot of it there. So let's wrap it up here. Takeaways. Of course, something I like, something I didn't like, and we'll end on a positive note, something that I like. So what did I like? I alluded to it earlier, so I'm cheating a little bit here, but I'm going to go with the value boxes once again. They were just really well made. And again, I didn't get to go through too many of them, but just based on the amount of people that were around them, I can put two and two together and assume that people wouldn't be spending tremendous amount of time at these boxes and pulling up a chair and building these really big stacks if they weren't finding quality cards for whatever price point these specific boxes were offered at. There were several boxes that I found where people had cards that others had in their showcase marked up for 5, 10x, 20x the prices, which is always funny to see. That just some really solid, like actual value in the value boxes. There's sometimes where I go to shows and I'm still looking for the value in some of those boxes, but a lot of people who got to, build out some binders or some team sets, some player collections, whatever the case may be, on the cheap. And that's always fun to do that. And I was talking with one of the dealers about this, is that he had some like numbered Bowman parallels in his showcase. And he said, I might as well bring these out. And I said, hey man, as a retired player collector, I got to tell you that I love seeing these types of cards at shows because I don't have to pay for shipping on them. And it's always nice to find these because sometimes people don't put them up for sale on eBay or Sport Lots or wherever you may buy your cards online. So, hey, it's always a plus. Let's go to what I didn't like. I've talked about this a couple of times before, and not even just on my channel, but on when I did the Let's Talk with Nats Man and Big Scott the other week, talking about dealers saying, I have too much into this card. I heard that a couple of times at this show, and my thought is always the same, is that that's not my problem that you have this much into it. Do I say that? No, I don't. I think it would be it probably would break down negotiations right away. Not that I am, usually sticking around in some of those cards. I usually, pass on them, say thanks for your time and move along. But it's just one of those things. I'm going to do a podcast episode about it, I think, just because I'm hearing it way, way, way too much. I have too much into it. But eventually you got to cut ties if you're really trying to move a card. Perhaps they aren't really in a hurry to move the card, which in that case, hey, that's fine. I have cards like that too, where I have a lot into them and I'm just not really willing to move them. That's fine. Sometimes I'll bring them out if I want to show them off. Sometimes I won't. So, but in general, a lot of these dealers are actively trying to move these cards, and when they're telling me I've got more than that into it, sometimes you just got to cut your losses and move on. But again, that'll be a podcast episode in the future, so look forward to that. Let's wrap up with something that I liked to end the day. There's a few things that I could pick out here, but I am going to go with the overall host of the show, because this is a show that has been around for a long time, and there's a lady her name is Stacy, who runs it, and there is usually a very long wait list to get a table at this show, and understandably so, because a lot of the dealers do incredibly well at this one here. They have brought in, since kind of the NCAA rules have changed, some signers of various Ohio State athletes, which I know made these shows insanely popular when they've had those signings. There weren't any this time around, but she is one of those promoters who will go to bat for you as a dealer. They have great door prizes, some of the best door prizes I see with these. They call them shopping sprees. I think they space them out so smart with when they draw them. And really, the dealers that she brings in are just some really quality people. They're very nice. They're very pleasant to deal with. Uh, and they always have a great selection too. So the show is so incredibly well run. And even after 2 years plus of being away from this show, it is still, running as smoothly as I remembered it way back the last time that I went there and I had set up. So tip of the cap to Stacy and her team for putting this show on. It's always very well run. And I can't always say that for every show that I go to or see out there, but it's an awesome show. So that's going to wrap up this show today. I appreciate you tuning in to today's recap. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I will be setting up the following weekend, so I don't know how much of a recap you'll really hear from me, since I don't plan on buying too much. But I always say that, and then things turn very quickly. So we'll see what happens. But until next time, take care, stay safe, be kind.